been saying that this is political vendetta, Nilashish, but on the other hand, sources also suggesting that Manish Sisodia was being evasive, and that's the reason why he was remanded to custody. Sanjay Hegde as well as Swapnil Kothari also joining us on the broadcast, senior advocates on the broadcast with us. Mr. Swapnil Kothari, what do you expect today? Because, the political blame game of it aside, yesterday the court has remanded Sisodia to 5-day custody. What's expected in the top court? Do you expect relief to come in for the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister?
I doubt it, because normally, the courts usually initially go with the investigative agencies, and I believe CBI must be having some semblance of evidence pointing towards the culpability of Mr. Sisodia. And from what I understand is that the kickbacks have been used for some political campaigning. So if there is some sort of evidence pointing to that effect, and obviously the arrest memo would have spelt out some charges, would have spelt out some meat to substantiate those charges. So I don't think that he is going to immediately get some sort of a relief in terms of bail, if that's what you're asking me. But I believe that the 4 or 5 days custody which the CBI has managed to obtain, I don't think that's going to be changed, and they will be allowed to continue the investigation, because a custodial interrogation is necessary when the person who's been accused of those offences, whether it's PCA or the PMLA, if they give evasive answers, and evasive is a very clouded definition in that sense, but that initially, as I said, they will going to go with the agency. And the agency will have to point out 2-3 instances where the answers have been evasive. So I believe that at least for initial part, I think the agency will have an upper hand today.
Okay. Also, because he is a minister, as has been mentioned time and again, whether he can be an influence in the case or not is also going to be considered by the court. But Mr. Sanjay Hegde, the Aam Aadmi Party has been saying that this is nothing but political vendetta, now knocking on the doors of the Supreme Court. But sources suggesting that he has been evasive. For the questions that have been asked of Manish Sisodia, he did not answer. In fact, even before he was arrested, the Aam Aadmi Party had already declared that he is going to be arrested today.
Well, I can't speak for the Aam Aadmi. Right against self-incrimination. You have the right to be silent. Yes, the investigating agency has a right to investigate, but you are not, the accused has a right against self-incrimination. If he has refused to give information, or if he does not remember details, the investigating agency can't say that he has been non-cooperative, therefore you please keep him in custody continually till he cooperates. That's not the way the law functions. It is not as if the Supreme Court is bereft of power to release people. You must remember that Arnab Goswami got released in 1 day. Recently, the Supreme Court entertained Pawan Khera's petition as well. I will not venture to say what the Supreme Court may or may not do. I have practiced in the Supreme Court long enough to say that there is nothing certain as to what happens out there.
Okay. So
Mr. Kothari may be much more certain, but I definitely am not certain as to what will happen next. We should not presume to rush into judgment that the Supreme Court is sitting over it.
Okay, all right. Let me just take in an update from Nilashish, who's joining us from right outside. Nilashish, when is the case likely to be taken up? It was expected to come up at 3:50 p.m. There has been a slight delay, but any moment now it could be taken up by the Supreme Court.
Well, absolutely, Pratibha. We're waiting for a hearing that is already going on, that is being heard by the Chief Justice's bench at this point. Of course, this is a matter with regard to the Punjab Assembly being summoned by the governor. This matter was also mentioned at the exact same time that Senior Advocate Abhishek Manu Singhvi mentioned Manish Sisodia's matter in the morning. So both cases were given the same time of 3:50 p.m. So now we are waiting for arguments to conclude and some sort of an order to come out in that case. And thereafter, Manish Sisodia's plea will be taken up. Of course, as we have been saying, the expected lines of argument will be very similar to what came up yesterday. While the CBI will continue to say that he was evasive, Manish Sisodia, of course, will say that I have cooperated, I have attended every summon that has been given to me, that has been any notice that has been given to me, and I have given answers. Now, his argument is that you do not have any grounds for remand when I am cooperating Cooperation does not mean that I have to say what exactly you want me to say. That will be the main argument, as we saw yesterday in Rouse Avenue Court as well. But the CBI, of course, has certain aspects which they will be pushing in court today. So it will be very, very interesting and very telling to see what the bench headed by CJI D.Y. Chandrachud says in this matter, while Manish Sisodia continues to be in the investigating agency's custody as of now.
Okay, all right. Mr. Swapnil Kothari, for the arguments that have been made yesterday in the court, do you expect it to hold water in the Supreme Court or not? Because like Nilashish was just mentioning, the argument has been around what has been told to the agencies up until now, apart from, also challenging the way the investigation in the case is going on.
Well, let me tell you, obviously the arguments will be repeated today, and I'm sure there'll be more thrust on the fact that I'm not supposed to say everything that you want me to say. But at the same time, yes, I do have a constitutional right of not saying something which incriminates me. But when it comes to fiscal offences of this nature, or especially when it comes to, where you are put up in the dock for Prevention of Corruption Act or Prevention of Money Laundering Act, you have to be a little bit more forthcoming than otherwise. So to that extent, that your right to self-incrimination gets a little bit diluted. Now, I'm no soothsayer or some forecaster as to what the Supreme Court is going to hold or not hold. But looking at the pattern of the way the courts have dealt with investigating agencies in the past, is that initially, as I used the word, my emphasis was on the word initially, and this being the first juncture at which a court is being approached. Yesterday also was the first juncture, and they got 4 to 5 days custody. So I don't see any reason as to why the Supreme Court should say that and interfere with the investigation process which is going on, unless that process is absolutely arbitrary, smacks of malafide, or has some bona fides which are absolutely in doubt to that extent, or has some sort of an error apparent on the face of the record. So unless and until Mr. Sisodia's team ends up showing that this was a completely bogus arrest, it was politically motivated, and provides that there is nothing in the arrest memo where Mr. Sisodia should at all be there even for a minute inside custody or, anything of that nature, only then and then the Supreme Court may agree that, okay, fair enough, we will release him on bail or we'll give him bail or whatever it is, or this arrest is bogus. But until then, I don't see much of a problem, at least for 2-3 days, as I said initially. Then maybe after 3 days, if you ask for some more custody, then the court may say, sorry,
right.
I don't know what you had, what did you do for 3 days?
Okay, because, a lot of arguments, political bickering that has been going on, that also mentions that though he was named as accused number 1, he was not even mentioned in the charge sheet. How will that hold in the Supreme Court? We're going to be talking about that, slipping into a quick break here. In a short while from now, the top court is going to take up this politically loaded plea. We're coming back with those live updates. Do stay with us.